And good evening and welcome to the July 14th meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We're glad to have those of you that are with us tonight, and we're glad to have those that are viewing at home, and I'm sure we have several. At this time, I'm going to ask you to please stand as David LaRoche will lead us in our pledge, followed then by a moment of silence. We'll want to remember board member David Settles and his family as a result of the passing of his son last weekend during our moment of silence. David?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our moment of silence. Thank you. All right, board members, you have seen a copy of the agenda. We need a motion to approve the agenda with one change, I think, Mr. Ringstaff.
Yes, sir. Please, I'd like to recommend the removal of the approval of 2021 CDI Pre-K Partnership Agreement. We can do this one in August.
Okay. We need approval of the agenda with removal of that item. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved with the removal of that item.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. LaRoche. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, approval of plan for reopening schools. Now, Mr. Ringstaff, I'm going to let you go through the plan completely, and then we will come back. Board members, I will ask, if you will, as we go through, if you'll write down questions or comments that you might like to have, and then we can get back with Mr. Ringstaff afterwards, after you go through the total plan, and we can ask questions for any discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today we had signing day. This is something that we've done for the last 3 days. We had 60 teachers to show up at central office, the principals, and the mascots, and we had signing day. And tomorrow, training camp begins. We do signing day one day, and training camp begins tomorrow. For those 60 teachers, we spread them out. We do distance, social distancing. So if you have a moment, you can come by, just to observe some great orientation taking place. Now, first of all, I would like to apologize because I'm going to have to read my remarks. I've been changing them periodically, and the last change I made was at 5 o'clock. So I don't have them memorized. If I give notes, I may forget something, so I apologize beforehand. I have been told that this may be the worst time to give a presentation to the board on how we plan to open schools. The numbers keep rising, and one of our fellow board members lost a loved one to COVID. However, I look at this situation as a challenge that we will overcome to provide our students the path to a brighter future. Tonight's presentation and the proposal regarding reopening schools is a result of many, many meetings, in-depth research, and collaboration with members of central office, supervisors, principals, teachers, as well as input by parents and outside health agencies. Countless hours over the past several months have been put into this very important decision. We hope our presentation will show parents, faculty, and staff how we will provide the safest and most productive environment possible for the upcoming school year. On March 13th, COVID-19 hit our school district, and like most systems, we were unprepared for its effects. Initially, we hoped that we would return to school the next week, the next month, but soon realized that we would be out for an extended period of time and needed to do the best that we could to serve our students. Our nutrition department immediately provided meals for students while our teachers stepped up to provide instruction and hard copy assignments for the children to try to keep them on track. However, these assignments were voluntary. When students arrive on our school campuses, it will have been at least 4.5 months since they were in school. Many students are behind and actually will have to relearn school. The 2021 school year will look much different than how we ended the 1920 school year. The state is mandating that we provide at least 6.5 hours of instruction per day for 180 days this school year. We must take attendance, and we must grade the work performed by students. All school districts have to submit a continuous learning plan by July 24th. If you hear CLPs, that's continuous learning plans. If we do not show how we intend to provide the 6.5 hours of daily instruction, regardless of what type of instruction, we will not be able to count any days we attend toward the 180 days that are required. And let me explain that a little bit, because there was a misconception that we would lose our funding, but the commissioner clarified that recently. They will give us an extension after July 24th. It's called a conditional approval to September 30th. If we don't have approval of our continuous learning plan by September 30th, and we continue to go to school after September 30th, they will not count those as part of our 180 days, which is not good. The following are our options. Option 1, give the parents a choice. We will offer and encourage students to attend school on campus. However, if parents would rather their child stay home, we will offer distance learning for that child. The state wants to see synchronized learning, which is when the student is engaging with the teacher at the time instruction is given. They want that live interaction. Therefore, we will have teachers teaching in a traditional school setting and some teachers teaching distance learning during the school day. All teachers will be in the school building, with some teachers in front of students in their classroom and other teachers in front of their students on a computer. Option 2, incorporate a hybrid plan. As an elementary school district, our hybrid plan is a little different, but others are doing it at the elementary school level. Many school districts have middle school and high school, but some school districts are doing the same thing that we are planning to do on the elementary level. And we believe it is the best option for our students. In our hybrid plan, pre-K through second grade would attend school every day. In third through sixth grade would have distance learning. Option 3, provide all distance learning. This is the least desirable route for us to take, as we do not have the technology to adequately offer this option. Computers are back ordered and they may not be here until January or even later. Sherry and Angela will talk more about each of these options a little bit later. And let's not forget ESP. Parents will need child care regardless of the status of our schools. During option 2, we will attempt to provide ESP for grades 3 through 6 during the school day. That may look like a teacher providing instruction to a few students live in the classroom as part of ESP, at the same time as some students at home doing distance learning. We will also offer ESP to pre-K through second grade after the school day ends. That's in option 2. And back up to option 2, we will give pre-K through second grade who we're asking to come to school, if they choose still to do distance learning, we will give them that option to do so. If we go to option 3, the decision regarding ESP care will be decided at that time if we have to go to option 3. Surveys. I think we did more surveys than any other school district. To gather information and input on how the parents and guardians, as well as employees in our system, felt about returning to school, we conducted 4 surveys. The first parent survey was sent out June the 9th and resulted in about 76% of our respondents stating that they were very comfortable or comfortable sending their children back to school with modifications. 2,860 parents responded to that question, representing about a third of our parents. 1,566, or about 55% of the parents, responded that they would be comfortable or very comfortable with the hybrid plan. On July 6th, we conducted our second parent survey. In hindsight, I probably should have just did one parent survey. The deadline for that survey was this past Friday. Of course, the percentage of parents who stated they would send their children to the traditional setting dropped from 76% to 68%, which is understandable. On June 24th, we conducted an employee survey which indicated that 97% of the employees planned on returning to work. This is great news, as a little over 600 teachers out of approximately 650 took the survey. That's an excellent percentage. On June 25th, we sent out a survey to all parents who had stated that their child would ride the bus. We only received about 1,000 responses, about 4,000, so to help us get a more accurate count of children needing bus transportation. Bus drivers they've been calling the parents of the children on the routes for those who did not respond to the survey. Mr. Anderson will talk more about the results of that survey in a few minutes. I have to give a shout out at this point to Lisa Trail and April Savista. Those two were responsible for doing all the work on the surveys. Lisa made so many all-calls to the parents, it seemed like we were prepping them for the school year when we have snow days. Next, sharing the plan with stakeholders. We didn't want this plan to be a central office plan pushed out to the schools. We wanted all parties included. Since the 1st of June, we have had weekly meetings with the principals. Even after they were supposed to be on their 1-month vacation, we held Zoom meetings at least once a week to give them updates and get their feedback. We presented our plan with them on Monday, July 6th, and it's changed a little bit since then, of course. We also wanted to get teacher feedback, but didn't know quite how to select the teachers. Well, it was quite obvious that we should invite all 26 recipients of Teacher of the Year this past school year, plus the president of the MEA, to participate in a Zoom meeting. With only a couple days' notice, we presented our plan to 17 teachers who represented all schools last Thursday. In my opinion, that was a very productive meeting, lasting an hour and 45 minutes. I know you have received emails, we have received emails, and we've listened. Regarding the use of masks, we feel we need to start the school year requiring all staff and students to wear masks within the guidelines. Central office is practicing these same guidelines along with temperature checks each day. Another area, our calendar is an area that we can make an adjustment. The county is scheduled to return 1 week after us. We could make the necessary adjustments to mirror the county's 2021 school calendar. This would have the first day for students on August the 10th instead of July 30th. The teachers would need to return on August 3rd instead of July 27th. I have more information to convey, but at this time I would like the experts in their respective fields to share how we are going to make our plan work. First, we are going to have Mr. Gary Anderson talk about the support areas such as custodial, transportation, nutrition, technology, and etc. Following Mr. Anderson, Ms. Sherry Arnett and Ms. Angela Fairchild will describe what the instruction day in general ed and special ed will look like in all three areas, in all three options. Then Mr. Joe Marlin will talk about the social and emotional health services. After Mr. Marlin, Ms. Sarah Walker, our nursing supervisor, will give details regarding preventative measures and steps to take when a situation arises. I will follow Ms. Walker and share more details with you. Tonight, you will hear the specifics of our plan rather than just an overview. So you will be getting quite a bit of information. As Mr. Campbell stated, and I have in my speech, so I can't differentiate, I got to go with it. I respectfully ask that you hold any questions until the end of our presentation, as your questions may be answered along the way. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Inkstaff. Good evening, Board. I'm going to talk with you about the support areas. I'm going to start out with transportation. And Lisa, do I hit the arrow here to get this? Okay.
Okay, I talk about overview of transportation. I thought it would be a good idea to show you what we're going to do for any child who's getting ready to get on the bus. Before they get on the bus driver and the bus assistant will have their temperatures taken at the shop to make sure that they are 100 degrees or less, or under 100 degrees. Brought you this is the type thermometer we're going to use. Who wants to be the guinea pig? Elizabeth, be the guinea pig? All right. It goes about 2 inches away, and it takes about that long, and it tells the temperature. She's 97.5. She can get on the bus. Thank you, Elizabeth. So we're going to teach every child's temperature before they actually step on the bus to see if they have a temperature or not. Of course, if mom is there or dad's there, they can go back home if they have over 100, but chances are the parent's not going to be there. Every child's going to have a face mask. If they don't, we will have one there for them, because sitting on the bus, we get 1 to 2 kids per seat. We will separate the children who have a temperature, and we'll put them right in the front seat and towards the window, so when other kids walk on, they're not going to be contaminating or breathing on them as they come in. What's going to happen before they actually get on the buses are going to be sanitized. We have commercial grade and it is hospital grade sanitizing equipment that we're giving to our transportation department, and I'm going to go through some other departments that'll have that. And this product has a lasting effect of 24 hours. As you know at home, if you clean something with one of these wipes will last until you touch it, and the next person touches, and it keeps growing. The product that we have purchased, and it's a really good, strong product for this, lasts 24 hours. And that doesn't mean we're going to let it last 24. We're still going to go back and do high-touch areas in between routes. We're going to go, because each bus driver does at least 2 routes a day in the morning and 2 routes in the afternoon. We're going to have them go through and touch that and hit the high-touch areas. What we're also going to do is if we do have a child who has a temperature, they're going to be escorted into the building by the bus assistant to an area that we have set aside as an isolation area. And I believe when Ms. Walker gets up to speak, she'll explain about our isolation area. But we have set that up for transportation. When the children get on, they're going to load all the way to the back of the bus first and then come up towards the front. When they get off, they're going to go off from the front of the bus first. So they're not ever crossing each other. They're always going to be loading from the back, and then when they exit, the kids at the front get off, then the next group, the next group, and next group. So that way we can keep them without any kind of cross-contamination on each other. So that's pretty much the way our bus routes are going to work. We have sent out, Ms. Savisa got a list together of everyone in the district who has marked on their registration card that they want transportation. We have called everybody in the district who has marked that. There's about 4,500 total names on that list, and we've eliminated, I think it was about 600 at last count, didn't anything else. About 600 families said, no, we don't want to start with transportation, we'll bring our own child to school, which is fine. That gives us more room on the bus. Because of the way we're going to be doing this, and because Ms. Avisa went and got this list together for us, we will know where the child lives. We can develop our bus routes from that, knowing that 600 less students want to actually ride the bus. So that's the way the transportation department's going to run, and the bus drivers and bus assistants are going to have their training on the sanitation products and how we're going to use them and what we're going to do with the children as they get on the bus. That's the first part of the support areas. The next area, I'd like to call up our expert on that. That's Sandy Shealy. Ms. Shealy is the supervisor of school nutrition, and she's going to talk about what goes on or what's going to be going on in our food service operation as we start back. Ms. Shealy.
Good evening. Before I start with our procedures that we're going to go forward on, just a little FYI. When we finish summer feeding, which will be July 24th, we'll approximately serve 150,000 meals since March 16th. So if you could just keep in mind, if you do choose to start school later, that's weeks that those children will not have meals. Our summer feeding program will end July 24th, and there is no extensions, so just please keep that in mind. Like everybody else, once the cafeteria staff comes in through the kitchen, they will be immediately taken their temperature. They will all be provided face masks that they will wear. We already have SOPs that we have in place for years that they'll follow as far as hand washing, gloves, all the protocols necessary. Breakfast will be served in the classroom as normal, like we have in the past. The only exception to that is at these past years that children have been able to reach in and get what they want from the breakfast. At this point, we're going to have to ask adults, a teacher or an aide, to pass out the meals, not have 20 little hands in there reaching for the food. Everything will be prepackaged either by the manufacturer or by us before it goes to the classroom. Lunch will also be served in the classroom. It will be served in these containers. This will allow us to reuse these. They'll run through our dish machine and meet all of the health codes necessary to kill all bacteria and germs. And this will save the district quite a bit of money, about $30,000 a month by using these and not throwing away.
I'm sorry, that's a reusable tray?
Yes. Yes, it's good to 180 degrees, and it is also good for 1,000 washings through the dish machines. So we didn't want to overload the trash, plus we didn't want to spend the extra $30,000 a month out of the nutrition department for disposables. That is our protocols. Once again, we'll take these down on carts. We will sit them on a table outside the teacher's room or wherever they have designated for us to sit for the teacher or the aide to pick up and distribute. We have purchased the software that will allow parents to go on our school cafe app and order the child's breakfast and lunch. They will pick exactly what they want. So that way, there's no questions if a child needs a meal or not. If they come in and they have not, the parent has not ordered for them in the morning, then we'll ask the teacher to make sure, just to go through the list. The teacher will see exactly who has already ordered, what they've ordered, everything. They'll see exactly what we're seeing. So that way we can assure every child gets a meal.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. We've got transportation, we've got school lunch, and I'm going to talk about custodial services. Custodial services have already been trained. We had them come in and we went over the products that we're going to be using. Again, we're using hospital-grade products for the safety of our kids. They will all wear masks when they're working. They will have their temperatures taken before they come in. They will do extra cleaning during the day to make sure that we are hitting the high-touch areas again on these products. They, too, will have the 24-hour special products. One of the brand names is called Microban. We have a different brand name, but it's the same type product. And then we also have the hospital-grade wipes that we use. Now, most people in their homes have these type wipes in this size. Well, to make sure our teachers are covered, we got the industrial size. Every teacher's going to get a bucket, holds 300 wipes. And then we put the chemical in, that's a liquid, that's pre-mixed, and it is the same type stuff you'd have there, but again, it is hospital grade. So the teachers will have gloves to wear when they use it, but it's just like same type thing, but it's a high grade wipe used in the healthcare industry. And we thought, instead of going through a zillion of these, we got these, so the bucket stays the same, and we replace the insert of the product, the towels. And then we control by putting in the pre-mixed stuff in our dispensers. So we wanted the teachers to have that to make sure that they feel good about their room. Now, the custodians also will have this product to use when they touch, like on all the switches, the doorknobs, and things like that. The high-touch areas will be used with that other chemical, and then during the day, they'll come with these products to make sure they get the extra cleaning. And we also have got another, I call Gary's Toys. This is a UV wand. If you've heard about UV lights kill the viruses. In this particular unit, it's a low-grade light, and you hold it 2 to 3 inches above an item, and you do it for 20 seconds, so it's good for like cleaning keyboards, for cleaning areas at the front office when people are coming in. It's really good for that type of thing. We have also purchased some UV lights to use in the isolation rooms and in our nurses' station. UV lights do kill all the bacteria, and so that's something we wanted to have. It kills not only the bacteria, but kills the viruses too. These products, 30 seconds, and it kills the virus. So we just want to make sure it goes on damp, stays damp for 30 seconds. A lot of times people come in and they take it and then they dry it off right away, and that really doesn't let it do its job. So that's why we trained our staff on how to do it. The custodians have been trained, they have been given the products, the night cleaning procedures are going through the same type thing again. And so we feel really good that we are providing our employees, our students, our staff, and some feeling of comfort for the parents to know that we have invested in hospital-grade products to help keep our whole community safe. So that's the custodial piece, and they have finished up their summer cleaning process, and we're getting reports back in from our principals now about how good it is, and I hope you'll get a chance to go by and see some of the schools before they start, just to see how they look. That's what I had for the custodial services piece. Mr. Ringstaff, do you want us to have Ms. Walker now come up and talk about hers, or do you want to go a different route?
That's fine.
Okay? All right, so the overview of the health services. This is Sarah Walker. She is our registered nurse, and she is our guru of everything about health and wellness.
Good evening, Board. First, I just want to thank every single person on this team, the principals, everybody. They have worked extremely hard, extremely hard. So a little overview of health services and what the nurses will be doing. Students and staff will be requested to wash their hands and sanitize hands more frequently throughout the day. We also have a teacher that will be doing, we've purchased Glow Germ, the experiment where you put it on your hands and then look under a black light, and then you wash your hands and then, see how well they wash their hands. We have a teacher doing a video, so all of the classes will be able to do that, and the students will be able to do that experiment along with the video. We'll be screening temps every day, as he said, on the bus, and as well as in the car rider line and the walkers and any visitors coming into the building. At least once a day we'll be doing that. We're getting some more guidance from the health department on that as well. Isolation rooms, as he mentioned, every school will have an isolation room. Right now it's in the cafeteria, all but I think one school we had a little issue because the cafeteria wasn't big enough, but we have come up with something else. There will be tents in the cafeteria set up so that Sandy's people, cafeteria people will be able to be separated from the students that are sick. All sick children will go, COVID symptoms, fever, all of that will go to the isolation room. That isolation room will be staffed with an EA, or we have hired a couple of extra nurses just to kind of float and make sure we have enough staff and enough nurses to cover all the buildings all the times. So we will have someone that is staffing that room. They will have full PPE. We have plenty of masks. We have gowns. We have hair covers, face shields, shoe covers. We have everything you could possibly need. If it is not here, it is on the way and has been shipped already. And will be here before we start school. We have radios in the isolation rooms so that isolation room attendant can get a hold of that nurse immediately if needed. And it will only be between the two, so it won't go throughout the school on the radio system. It'll just be between the isolation room and the nurse, and maybe the principal. Let's see, limited access to the nurse. The nurse's clinic will stay clean for our meds and our procedures. And injuries, so that we will not have those students who have to come to the nurse clinic every day. They will not be where the sick kids are. Immediate communication with parents when signs of illness occur. So as soon as we already do this, we call immediately, but we will be calling so that they will come immediately and pick up their children who are sick. And they will be in the isolation room, so the faster that they can come pick up their children, the better it will be for everyone. We will have more communication with parents through Dojo and all the other different ways we can contact parents, make sure that those numbers are up to date. Immediate communication with parents when we have a COVID case. So we have letters that will go out to the students who or staff who were exposed, and then we have letters that will go out to the school saying there was an exposure and this is, we have done all the necessary things. So very transparent, we will let everybody know what's going on. And we will be working with the health department. Strict protocols for return to school after illness, very important. Our normal back to school after illness is 24 hours without meds. That is no more. It will be at least 72 hours, and that would be with a diagnosis. There is a very long list of how you can come back, and most of that includes ruling out COVID. So, and I'm sure you guys will have questions about that, so we'll talk about that when there's questions. All of the nurses are certified or are working on it and will be done before school starts. In the Johns Hopkins contact tracing, they have taken it. They're going to go through intense training on contact tracing. They will know exactly what to do when we have a positive case. We have multiple scenarios. I know the big question is, what if it's in my classroom? Well, the nurses will know exactly what to do. We have forms for anyone who goes district-wide. So our ACEs counselors, our substitute teachers, all of those who go to different classrooms will fill out a form every day that says who was in their group and how close were they, all the questions that the nurses will need to know to go back and trace those contacts. The return to school after illness and the contact tracing, all that is student and staff. So the protocol, the sick protocols, regard to both. And I think they'll talk about medical evac later. That's really all I have for now, till it's question time.
Okay, Mr. Campbell is here for technology, and he's going to be here to back up the ladies who are going to talk about the options for adaptations. So he doesn't have a formal presentation to make because he's the one who has the technology pieces that we're waiting to come in. We have ordered the technology that we could order, and Dell is being so far backed up because their manufacturing plants were shut down during the virus over in China, so we're having to wait on those, but we have got our order in. The city council graciously approved our order to get the second half of computers to put us 2-to-1 in all of our grades. And as soon as we get the purchase order from the city, we will be ordering those as well. So that's the support areas, and the options and adaptations, Mr. Ringstaff, is what we're up to. So I think it's yours or the ladies.
Thank you. Ms. Arnett, Ms. Fairchild?
Good evening, Board. I just have to say, on behalf of the Instruction Department, I could not have done this without the Instruction Department since March 13th. When schools shut down, they did not miss a beat. I mean, they picked it up along with administration of schools and just did what we needed to do during those difficult times. I want you to bear with me. I'm going to have to be like Mr. Ringstaff for a minute and just read what I have written out. But I want you to know, as it has been mentioned, school is going to look a lot different than it did in August of last year. It's probably going to look a lot like it did when you and I were in school. We hope that this will be for a brief time and that we can gradually get back to see what we know our MCS classes to look and sound like. We have spent several weeks planning for the start of the 2021 school year. Lots of conversations, lots of meetings, lots of problem solving, and most importantly, developing plans for keeping all our employees and students safe during these times. We all know that our elementary students learn best when they are engaged in the learning at the time the teacher is providing the instruction. This has been termed synchronous instruction, and it takes place in a virtual or in-person setting. We feel that Plan 1 that I'm getting ready to describe is an option that will allow for in-person instruction for those who decide to return to the school building, and a great plan for those who choose distance learning. We are very fortunate, and I thank you for this, that we have high-quality curriculums in reading. We've newly adopted expeditionary learning, and we have used this time to conduct professional development for our teachers and staff so they are ready. We also have the ready curriculum for math, and this will enable us to have a greater consistency in the delivery of instruction, especially for the distance learning. So at this time, I'm going to take a moment and just share with you Plan 1, the traditional learning for schools, for students that make the decision to return to school. We will follow the scope and sequence on the website, just as we have done in the past. We will also follow the master schedule. Special area teachers will push in, and as Mr. Ringstaff stated, they will be wearing masks. They will wash hands between classes. Now for PE, this I know has been a question, we are encouraging students to go outside for PE, as well as to eat lunch outside if at all possible. In some schools, we'll be able to go into the gymnasiums for PE classes. Departmentalized teachers will move to the classrooms rather than have students move. This will be limiting the use of equipment for departmental, such as manipulatives. Students will have their own manipulatives that they will use so that they're not sharing with each other. Laptops will be used by the same student as much as possible and will be sanitized after each use. Students will, I think I've already shared, students will need their own supplies to eliminate the need to share, and we're taking care of that through community partners. We're going to get teachers what they need. Attendance will be taken, grades will be taken. ESL, interventionist, and SPED teachers, and I'll let Ms. Fairchild talk a little bit more about SPED, but they will actually go to the classrooms, pick up the students. The EA will remain in that classroom, sanitize between different grade levels, and then come back and pick up another group. We will provide professional development as needed, and then iReady and Lexia will continue as prescribed. That again is for students that will be in the school. For the students that choose distance learning, this is a 9-week agreement, and we will share more with that at just a little later. But the schedule I'm about to share with you is based on a 7:30 to 2:30 school day. And I'm just going to give you minutes because I know that these may have to be adjusted somewhat for depending on grade level. So K2 may have to look a little different from 3-6. But we would propose, and this would be via Zoom, and the students would use Google Classroom as well. 15-minute morning meeting, followed by 1 hour for English language arts, followed by a 15-minute break. There would be 1 hour of math, followed by a 15-minute break. 1 hour of science and social studies, or STEAM, followed by a 30-minute lunch, and then 45 minutes of special area. This will be via Zoom or recorded link, depending on the size of the school, followed by a 15-minute break. Following that, there will be 45 minutes of computer assistance learning, which will be our Lexia and iReady, and 1 hour of teacher-led small groups. For teachers that become distance learning teachers, we will determine a PD schedule for them. As soon as we know who they are, we are ready to do that. I have spoken with Trent Cheeves and Mickey Brooks today, along with the instruction department, and we are ready to support teachers for PD with that. Plan 1 will require some pickup of materials and curriculum at the school and drop off of some assignments. That will probably have to happen. Again, we will provide training for Google Classroom in the first months, and we're asking principals that they set up a time with Trent and Mickey so that they can receive a refresher training of Google Classroom as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Fairchild so that she can discuss option or Plan 1 for SPED.
I have to echo what every other department has said. The special education department has also had numerous meetings, planning sessions, emails, Zoom calls. We created a special ed task force, and I also requested that all of the special education teachers and staff send me questions, comments, ideas. They're the ones out there. I thought they would have the best ideas. I am in contact with other special ed directors in our area, and we meet bi-weekly and to discuss, different things. So we're all in the same boat. I do appreciate all of the emails I have received from teachers, from you, from parents. It does help us plan when we get those questions. So if a student with an IEP returns to school for option 1, their day will look just as it did before, with the safety procedures in place, the cleaning procedures. If they are pulled out to go to a special area classroom, such as resource or speech, they will continue to do that following the procedures Ms. Arnett said. As always, this is on an individual basis. One size fits all doesn't count in special education, so we will do what we need to do to meet the needs of the students. But for pull-out programs, that will be the way we want it to look. For these small groups to work, we may have to have more classroom spaces. We may need to work with the different schools to keep the groups small, in order to allow for social distancing as much as possible. Because we won't be eating in the cafeteria and the special area rooms may be open, we may be able to work out something like that. We will figure it out. We'd like to keep the group under 10 so that we can social distance as much as possible. For the parents who choose distance learning, the state has asked for us to create a contingency plan for any student with an IEP. And what this means is the IEP team, which includes the parents, will get together and come up with a plan on how we will follow the IEP virtually, what we need to put in place to implement that IEP. It doesn't replace it, it just outlines how to follow it. So when we return back to school, we will again have an IEP meeting and determine if we need to change anything in the child's plan. That plan will most likely utilize a combination of remote learning systems, hard copy, whatever that student needs. It does not necessarily mean 6.5 hours a day in front of a computer. Another thing for students who receive distance learning who have an IEP, they will have the opportunity, if they receive any related services, which include occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, vision, hearing, if they receive any of those related services, typically those are not every day. If they are, they're not 30 minutes an hour, something like that. For the most part, they will have the option to come into school and receive those services, even if they are receiving distance learning. We could provide an area in the school where they would not have to come in and walk through the whole building. So that will be an option for them, because it would be difficult to receive physical therapy, occupational therapy virtually. If they do not choose to do that, then we will come up with a plan. We will make it work. We will figure it out, depending on the student's needs. I think that's all for option 1.
Okay. Plan 2 is the hybrid plan. That is where pre-K 2 would be in the school buildings with 3-6 distance learning. This plan is not much different from the traditional, except one of the challenges we would have would be 3-6 go completely distance learning. That would be a challenge in the number of devices that we have, as well as bandwidth for the number of teachers and students on wireless at the same time. I am going to ask Mr. Campbell if he will come to the podium and talk just a little bit about the number of devices we have and what that possibly could look or not look like in that hybrid plan.
Good evening. So, as you know, we've completed the one purchase that was approved by City Council this past December. That was 3,136 Chromebooks, allowing us to give 2nd through 6th grade one Chromebook per student. The next purchase will allow us to extend that to K1. So K6 will be one Chromebook per 2 students. Based on the number of those choosing distance would kind of strain us on where do we send the devices? Do they stay at school? Do they go home? So that's kind of where we're stuck. Who gets what? I'm not sure if you had any other thoughts, Sherry, or...
One thing that we have done in the CARES Act, we were able to put in a request for 500 computers. Hopefully this will allow 6th grade to be one-to-one. We've shared this with principals and asked, some schools have purchased Chromebooks and iPads on their own. So we're asking that they repurpose those down to 5th, possibly 4th, so that we can get a plan going for making in the future so that we are one-to-one as we go forward. So that will help, but just at this time, we're not there yet. We're just not there yet.
And we also, in the special education department, put technology in the CARES Act, assistive technology for any devices that children may need that are specialized to them, iPads, laptops. We also received a technology grant from the state that allowed us to purchase even more. So we're anxious to get that.
Lisa Trail has been phenomenal in helping us reach out to community partners with specific needs for our technology requests. So we are still in process of working with her and the community to see what we can do in case we do have to go to 100% distance learning. But at this time, due to accessibility and computers, we're just not equipped to do that at this time. We're working on it, but just not now. I believe that's all I have for the 3 plans.
Yeah, I have a couple more things for option 2. If a student who receives the majority of their day in a comprehensive setting chooses to come to school, of course, if they're pre-K2, they are. But if they are in grades 3 through 6, where general education is receiving everything remotely, grades 3 through 6 comprehensive students do have the choice to come to school because it is so much more difficult for them to receive online learning. If parents choose to not send them, then that goes back to creating the contingency plans for them. And the same thing would be true for the option 3, the distance learning.
Sherry, why would we choose pre-K through 2nd grade to come to school every day in our hybrid?
One of the reasons why we would like pre-K through 2 to come to school is because, again, we go back to that synchronized learning and that real time. So that's number 1. Students learn best from the teacher right in front of them. And as you know, pre-K2 foundational skills are huge. Also, the thought of a pre-K2, being on distance learning for a long time is difficult. So we feel like we can close those gaps more in person than we could virtually. And those are the ones that we want to, if you catch them in pre-K2 first and close those gaps, it's a lot easier in 3 through 6 going forward.
I do have one more thing. When Mr. Ringstaff was recommending that students are required to wear masks, some students in special education or not may not be able to wear the mask. A lot of students in our special education rooms may have sensory issues or other issues, and staff may as well. And we will handle that. We have ordered face shields. We've ordered, just as Ms. Walker said, we've ordered everything you can order to try to accommodate these cases.
Let me just say too, K2, they learn to read. We want them to be right in front of that teacher. So again, thank you for listening to our plan. We have spent a lot of time, and we are open to suggestions as well, but we do feel like we have a good plan.
We've all seen the article from the American Academy of Pediatrics. They strongly advocate that all policy considerations for the coming school year start with the goal of having students physically present in school. With that in mind, we are laying the groundwork for providing a traditional school setting as well as distance learning. If you approve option 1 tonight, for the rest of this week, the school administrators will contact each teacher and other staff, asking them if they prefer in a traditional classroom setting or a distance learning setting. Once the principals compile that information, we will determine which teachers start in which setting. Now, it is my goal to take care of the teachers and staff who have an underlying condition, who have a compromised immune system, who are over 65, or who have a household member who are over 65. That's my goal, and then we would go from there. Again, those teachers who are distance teaching, they will be expected to come to the school building. They will not have to interact with anybody. They would be teaching in an empty classroom. They would just be buzzed in and go to the classroom and teach with that engagement with the students. Now, with the distance learning, if you've watched the news, many school districts, and these are the school districts who have high schools, who have semester classes, they are not allowing students to switch to a traditional classroom setting until the end of the semester. We want to allow parents to switch their children to a traditional classroom setting at each of a 9-week period with a 2-week notice, because we have to make adjustments with our teachers in that regard. By doing this, we hope to transition more and more students and teachers to the traditional school setting as the year progresses. Of course, we all hope that this lightens up and the numbers get better, and as that happens, we can transition to a more traditional classroom setting. We have purchased over 2,000 masks, and we are also purchasing face shields for all our employees. Those masks are the ones that you've got at your setting at your desk right there. And then also the face shield. They can use either or both. Also, we've gotten word that we're going to have 40,000 masks for our students. Now that's 4 masks per student. We all know that some students will go through those in 1 week. As for extracurricular or other gatherings, we're going to have to make adjustments there. Because of the current situation, our very popular MCS Basketball League will be postponed until after winter break. I don't want to lead anybody on that we may eventually have it, because there's a possibility it could be canceled. Murfreesboro City Schools will not attend an MTSU basketball game this year. Open houses, field trips, and school-wide gatherings will either be limited or held virtually. Now, Scott Campbell has talked to me about some competitive video game that we can have school competition. I don't know anything about video games, so I'm going to have to leave it up to him to try to coordinate that. But if that happens, we can do social distancing and have a little competition between schools. As it has been spoken, option 3, distance learning, the available technology is a concern, at least starting out the school year. We hope at some point that we have more Wi-Fi capability at the schools, that you can get Wi-Fi in the parking lots. We've even thought about getting a hotspot on a bus and putting it in the neighborhoods, 2 or 3 buses in the neighborhoods where students can access the internet using those buses. But we have about 4,000 electronic devices that are usable, that we feel comfortable in giving to students. And that's just really not enough. The others we hope to arrive in January or a little bit later. So I don't think that our continuous learning plan would be approved right now if we went to option 3. Also, because of the shortage of electronic devices and the Wi-Fi availability, we are asking that each child who signs up for distance learning be able to supply their own electronic device and internet access. If we supplied every child who chooses to distance learn an electronic device, and 2,000 students sign up, then we would have about 2,000 other electronic devices to do over 7,000 students. While we have indicated and research shows that it is in the best interest of students to return to the traditional classroom setting, the well-being of teachers and staff are also important to us. I am not only wearing the interim director hat, but also the human resources hat. In April, the federal government passed a law that expands the Family Medical Leave Act. And it gives employees 10 paid days off without them using sick days if they test positive for COVID or if they've been exposed to COVID. Now, this law is set to expire December 31st. We could, as a board, extend that, and I'm sure the federal government's going to extend it as well, but if they don't, we could extend it as a school system until the end of this school year. So if they test positive in January, February, then we could give them 10 days of pay off. It's 14 days of quarantine, basically. Now, something else, this is like a one-time thing. If you test positive and you use up those 10 days, then you don't get another 10 days of pay. We could approve that it could go multiple times if necessary. I know of no other school system that has done that yet. But we could do that for our teachers and our employees. Several districts have set parameters that dictate which option they use. I prefer to use the guidelines set forth by the Tennessee Department of Health, and please allow me to read these. Consider closing a school if 2 or more classroom cohorts are required to quarantine within a 14-day period, or if the absentee rate, student body, is high. Consider closing a school if there is widespread exposure of students and staff such that it is not possible to identify and quarantine contacts. Schools may want to close temporarily 2 to 5 days to allow for contact tracing and reopen if it is determined that the threat to the school at large is low. Consider closing the school district if, in consultation with state and local public health officials, it is determined that community transmission is high and there is significant risk of spread through the school population, or if absenteeism has impacted staff to the degree that school can no longer be conducted safely in person. Any district closure or school closure should be accompanied with a remote learning plan. Consider closure of a school or district based upon the following absentee rates as determined from the 2009 H1N1 pandemic. Single-day absenteeism rate of greater than 5% above the baseline would set the baseline. Double-day absentee rate of greater than 4%. Triple-day absentee rate greater than 3%. As you know, we've had a situation in the central office. While it is on a smaller scale, we were proactive, dealt with the situation, and we moved on. In its guidelines to reopen school, the Tennessee Department of Education asserts in-person instruction typically provides the strongest opportunity for high-quality instruction, services, and remediation to take place. Last May, Dr. Linda Gilbert expressed concern several times that if we had to start school in distance learning and stayed in that mode until winter break, she would have to send letters to all the parents stating it would be in the best interest for their child to repeat the current grade the following year. It is my sincere hope we can avoid that scenario by offering in-person classroom instruction however possible. I would like to remind everyone of our mission to focus on the whole child, which includes academic, physical, cognitive, social, and emotional development. Most of our students are behind in all those areas. With that in mind, we are asking for your support to do what we feel is in the best interest of the children of Murfreesboro. For parents to trust us with the care of their children and to provide the safest environment possible. For our teachers and staff to believe we care about their health and well-being and that we will be proactive to keep their environment safe should a situation arise. And I would like to close by recommending you approve option 1 as our strategy to open the 2021 school year. And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it over to you to solicit questions.
Thank you, sir. And we certainly do appreciate those of you that have made reports to us tonight. And I'm sure, Ralph and others, that there are board members who have questions. And I think we need to take an opportunity for each board member to ask whatever questions they might have. And I'm going to start. That's okay. What about volunteers? If a person wants to volunteer to work in a building, are they allowed to volunteer, or do we stop that?
At the beginning, we would like to limit that as much as possible. We are really prohibiting parents from having lunch with their children and things like that.
Okay. Now, you mentioned early on about the calendar. Are you proposing that we wait a week before we start? Is that what you were saying earlier?
Yes, I am proposing that we mirror the county's school calendar for
Okay.
2021 school year.
All right. And you did say that you have ordered shields for every employee. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was a question that was asked to me earlier. Now, I've got a couple of others. If I can find them on this massive thing. Will parents be notified, and I think this answer is yes, if their child's class has a positive case in the class?
Yes.
Okay.
And let me add, if a situation like that arises and we have to close the classroom because of one positive case, then that teacher would distance learn with the other 19 students. Distance teach with the other 19 students.
All right. If one child tests positive, then the whole class does distance learning for the 14 days.
Possibly,
As
but
much as
this
possible.
afternoon we had a conversation with the Rutherford County Health Department, and it's possible that only the children within 6 to 9 feet of that child would be quarantined.
I got you. Okay. Question, and I don't know anything about this. Why is Clarksville only requiring 20 hours online instruction a week with the remaining 12 and a half hours as non-online instruction? You know anything about that?
I don't, but I do know that you can have, let's say, an hour for reading, and 30 minutes of that might be direct instruction from that teacher Zoom, and then the other 30 might be completing a task, but not in real time. And then they come back the next day and pick up where they left off. So that may explain how they're doing that.
Okay. Any different provisions for a special area teacher if they are exposed?
We talked about that today with the Rutherford County Health Department. As long as a teacher stays 6 feet or further away from those students, that those students are okay if that teacher tests positive. I mean, let's say that the music teacher goes to 5 classrooms a day. As long as that music teacher stays further than 6 feet apart, 6 feet or more longer apart, and wear a mask, then we're okay.
Now, when Scott talked a minute ago about purchasing the laptops, if a child already has a laptop, do we provide them with another, or we let them use the one they have?
Let them use the one they have.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured too. Okay, I'll go to Mr. LaRoche, and then we'll just work our way right around the table.
Well, I've got a lot of questions, and I won't go through the list. I imagine we'll come back to some of them if they're not asked by other members. Mr. Ringstaff, I sat in. I got to listen on a phone call with over 100 of our teachers last night, and it was excellent. And I've gotten many emails from teachers, and I have yet to have one say, please don't require masks in the classroom. Everyone who has mentioned it has said that they want to feel safe, to know that the children are required to wear masks. And of all the materials you provided us, I've read them, and I have to ask this question and expect an answer that begins with either a yes or no. But are children under option one required to wear masks inside our buildings?
Yes, sir.
So if they come in without a mask, we will give them one or ask them to leave if they refuse to wear one.
We will give them one and encourage them to wear it if they have some type of condition, like special ed and things like that. They're excused from wearing it.
What if that condition is a parent who has a political stance on masks? Would that be an acceptable reason not to wear one?
That's the time that I will consult with Elizabeth Taylor.
Ms. Taylor, can we refuse to teach a child who breaks our mask rule?
In my opinion, the school board has the authority to designate a dress code for students, and considering the COVID-19 pandemic and the guidance from the health department, I think making a mask part of the dress code is acceptable and enforceable by the school district. So in order to be educated in the traditional setting while we're under these guidelines, then a student would have to wear a mask unless they fall into one of the permissible excuses.
That's an acceptable answer. I do wish that there was materials that were provided to parents that say quite succinctly that your child shall wear a mask in the classroom. I'm worried that it's fungible, it's squishy, the language right now.
That decision was made at 2 o'clock this afternoon. That material will have that before the start of the school year.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ringstaff and I have talked about amending our code of conduct to include COVID-19 related issues such as bullying somebody for wearing a mask, or refusal to wear a mask, or intentionally coughing on somebody thinking it's a joke to make them think that they're exposed to COVID-19. So this will be addressed in the code of conduct.
Thank you. I'll defer to another.
Okay, I just want to echo your comments about the outstanding job that all the team has done, Ralph, and putting this together. I think it's just shows what a first-class operation we have and what a teamwork operation we have. Mr. Anderson, when you were going through the transportation, I know at one point we talked about different bell times and need for another bus run. Are we free of that?
Thank you for the question. The Transportation Department is now putting together the routes. We're not going to have a third bell time. We feel pretty good that we can handle, if we can go up to 60 kids on a bus, we can handle that. And we might have a few buses running a second run to a school, but it will not be a drastic change. So we're feeling pretty good now about that.
Good, good. Okay, my other question is a total different direction. I had several comments in the emails I received for a good point about sub-teachers. How will we provide safety for in other words, teacher goes to Northfield and the next day he or she is at Overall?
I would love to have subs divided out by schools. That'd be the ideal situation. But realistically, I would settle for a zone. This subs at these 3 schools. I think that's the most important way that we can contain their exposure.
Will they be required to have their temperature checked and,
yes, sir.
and such
yes,
of those
like
entry procedures?
Yes.
Okay.
And they will also attend PD for distance teaching.
Okay, good. And then a question regarding the change in schedule to delay start. And Sandy mentioned that the meals would be unavailable if we do that. Is that really, can we create a fix for that?
I don't think we can, and I guess the county is along those same lines.
Okay. All right, I guess I have to.
Ms. Barr?
Okay, how many can I ask?
One.
One? I cannot limit my questions to one.
Round robins, one at a time, and then we'll move on.
Oh my gosh, it'll take forever. Okay.
2 rounds.
Oh boy. You mentioned subs. We can't get enough subs on regular classroom days. Y'all know that. I mean, we never could. At Pittard, it was a great day when every room was covered by a sub or a teacher, and I didn't have to pull an EA or whatever to do that, right? I'm not trying to be combative. I'm asking what the solution is. So I'm thinking about, like a while ago we talked about, I think about not getting enough subs for one. All right, so that limits, we cut down the number of personnel we have in a school right away by that. Number 2, you mentioned if only part of a class is quarantined, that maybe they would be the only ones quarantined if they were within 6 to 9 feet. But so does that teacher teach both the distance learning to those children and the in-person learning with the remainder of the class?
And that's a very good question, and we just got that information this afternoon at 2 o'clock. We'll have to.
Okay, I
think
mean,
more
because
about
I'm worried about, I'm worried about teachers with cleaning too. Are they basically going to be expected to clean their rooms all day long? And I would expect them to wipe doorknobs, help children clean certain things. I get that, but not the more extensive parts, I mean, and I'm sure we don't have money to hire additional people to help with cleaning. So, I mean,
To be honest with you, I think teachers will be expected to do more cleaning this year than in the past,
okay. All right.
just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, I understand. So then if we go back to that, and I'm not just concerned about teachers, but I have so many questions about all of it. I'm just limiting my sections. All right, so we're going back to teachers then. Evaluations and state testing. Is the state going to back off on that?
There was one mention about testing. And I think that'll get louder and louder.
Okay.
And I'll jump on the bandwagon.
There's
with
no way. I mean, that's absolutely ludicrous. I don't even see how benchmarks are going to be given virtually. I mean, let's be honest. Anybody can help a child do a benchmark at home, and we don't have a real understanding of what they can do.
Good
I mean, I'm not trying to be unkind. I'm just trying to say we need to know where these kids are and to be able to help them, to be able to teach them. And if we don't have a really good baseline to start with, if we have a baseline that's here when actually it should be here,
Yes.
that's a
But
concern.
as far as evaluations, we're going to inform the principals, don't start doing any evaluations until after fall break. Also, we're going to keep in mind,
Okay.
like Sherry said, we're going to teach old school. Start out with the teacher in front of the class, not moving around, not engaging the students like they have in the past. It's going to be like we were when we were in elementary school,
Right,
unfortunately.
and I totally understand that. See if there's anything else that I can throw into that group, and then I can wait my turn on the next round. I do want to go ahead and mirror the county schedule. I think that's a great idea. I definitely think we have to require masks. And I will add that I went through Metro's plan, and there will be consequences for children that don't wear masks. I mean, mostly not coming to school, but they're going to stick to it. And I know that they're in a different place potentially than we are, but actually, maybe not. I mean, our cases keep increasing, so I think masks we have to do.
Yeah.
And I think that will help so many teachers feel more comfortable about being with that many different, because really they're with that many different families. They're not with that many different children. They're with that many different families, and whoever those families are around. I mean, we've all watched it spread. So I think that would help considerably.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll stop talking now and I'll come back.
All right, Ms. Moore?
Thank you. Thanks, Roseanne. You covered a lot of my long list of questions, so appreciate it. I want to start just by thanking you all for all this work. It's so clear how much thought has gone into this and trying to think of all the details. There's so many parts to this. And I know you were even thrown a particular wrench with the passing of Dr. Gilbert right in the middle of all this. And so you've really rallied to meet the challenge, and I appreciate that. The thing that has weighed on me since March 13th is thinking about our students who rely on school for stability and for services, and thinking about what was happening with them while they're out. So to me, what I've really been struggling with is weighing this risk of harm to those kids of staying out of school longer against the risk of harm from the virus to our employees, our teachers, our students, and then their families as well. And those are two really valid concerns of risk that don't exactly align. And I feel like the plan that you've come up with really does a good job of trying to thread that, to make it possible for those kids to be in school, but also try to keep our teachers and employees as safe as possible. I do have a big question about this, though. I really want to see our decisions based on data and not dates. And what I mean by that is, I really like the suggestions that you gave that give us specific data points of when to close a class, when to close a school, possibly when to close a district. But what I haven't heard is the data on when it's safe to start, because all those metrics require kids already being in the classroom to know the absentee rate or cases in classes. You know, and so I've seen a lot of schools have these, our systems have these really clear guidelines of in-person, hybrid, online, and they're based on county level infection rates. And Mr. Ringstaff and I have talked about this, and you did a good job explaining why that's not a great fit for Murfreesboro City Schools. The geography doesn't align. You know, so if there's an outbreak in the north end of the county, we're still penalized. If there's an outbreak in an institution like the jail, it requires testing time. But I feel like I need something from the health department or something, because if we were looking at that, at the levels that other systems are employing, right now we would be in hybrid. We would not be able to start in person. And so it gives me great pause to think about saying, yeah, let's go, we're in the green, when actually our numbers are probably in the yellow. So that's my question. Where's the metric that says it's okay to start this now?
It's more municipalities, we really can't have set metrics. As I stated, I've talked to the Rutherford County Health Department today. And any time we're going to have a situation, a positive case, they're going to consult, they're going to advise, they're even going to help contact trace. And if we have to shut down, I'm going to lean to them. When can we reopen? When is it safe for us to reopen? I'm not going to make those decisions. I'm going to lean on their advice and say, okay, according to the health department, it's okay to open back up. I think that's...
Did you all talk about the current level and the fact that it's up, and did they say anything about, yeah, it's okay to start now? I really would like that assurance that they think it's an okay time to go back. When there's no, I mean, I know we all say, well, maybe it'll get under control, but I'm not seeing anything coming from leadership that's going to get this virus under control in Rutherford County.
And I think that the health department's goal is to keep us open as safe as possible until it's not safe. So, you know, they would rather close 1 or 2 classrooms before they would close the whole school. You know, and the state has just put out today, like, color-coded by zip codes. And
oh, okay.
yes, 37127, things like that. And it doesn't look good.
So the data is getting a little more localized,
Yes.
is what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
which I like.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still not totally satisfied, but I realize there's not much you can do. But that's my big caution on this. Otherwise, I feel like you've thought of a lot of things. I still have a lot of questions too for the next round. I guess my one other question on this is what Sandy said about the time period of no meals also gives me great pause now. So I'm back to that tension between these two risks. Is there nothing, the fact that we're still in a state of emergency in Tennessee till the end of August, that would give us any sort of leeway of continuing to offer meal service?
Even though we're under a state of emergency, the summer feeding program that Murfreesboro City Schools applied for is over on the 24th. It's very unlikely that I would get an extension due to the fact that we were scheduled to go back to school. So at this point...
It's like a grant, isn't it, Sandy?
It is.
Yeah.
Is that part because it's federal money that mostly funds our meal program? And
Yes. The summer feeding program is funded through DHS, through the USDA funnels it down through DHS. Once we start school, it goes through the National School Lunch Program, which is completely under control of the USDA. So we have two completely different waivers and expectations and dates that right now they're just.
It's not aligning. And what about the PEBT, the card that people have been able to apply for that gives them dollars for the meals that they missed during school absence?
Correct.
Could that possibly continue into August, or would that have to be approved by the feds and then the state?
The PEBT is from March 16th until our scheduled last day of school.
So it was just the spring
It's
semester.
just those days they're going to.
No one's talked about moving it to the start of the fall semester, because we're also at a disadvantage just nationally. We're some of the earliest school systems in the whole country, so I feel like we're guinea pigs in that respect as well.
Yeah, the northern states is watching us.
Yeah, for sure, I would be.
And I'm getting calls from other ones and going, what are you going to do? As of right now, our State Department of Nutrition has asked for other waivers. They're not in place at this time.
Okay.
They've asked that we could feed all the children at no cost at the whole district. That's something that the whole country is asking for due to the uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
And the USDA hasn't approved that yet.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
All right, Ms. Goff?
Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to have to mirror the other comments made by other board members. My hat is off to you, Mr. Ringstaff, and your team leaders for working tirelessly in developing reopening strategies to get our schools open this fall. We're all grateful for your effort, and I really appreciate it. I know it's evident how much hard work's been put into it. As stewards, I think, of our educational system here in Rutherford County, I need for our citizens and parents and teachers to understand that we have to weigh the risk of returning our students back to school with the coronavirus and the risk of that. And also we have to look at the risk of our children that live in undesirable home situations. I know that when I was at Hobgood, I had a child at recess that asked if they could take a nap during recess. And when I told her sure and asked her why. She stated that she had been kept awake all night because they live in a motel, and her father was killing gopher rats all night. And I know that we have children who live in undesirable apartment complexes and just housing situations, and we have to weigh both of those. We are having to look, not everybody lives in a home situation where parents are able to help them be educated and stay on top of their learning. So it's a difficult situation that this has put us all in, and I hope that parents and our citizens understand that, and I think that they do, but we see the big picture, and I know the staff here sees the even bigger picture. So one of the things I wanted to ask, did you all consider or look at starting school after Labor Day? Since our numbers have been high, that kind of concerns me that our numbers are high. I think that today when I looked that maybe we're maintaining them, but Labor Day, did you consider that?
I think we need to mirror the county as much as possible because we have siblings going to both school systems. If we start after Labor Day, we'd be going close to July 4th.
But that would give us a little bit more time to ride this out since our numbers are kind of high. I'm just saying, if we pushed back to Labor Day, and hopefully they're calling for a vaccine in spring of 2021, or hopefully, that would push us back and give us time to level out some of these numbers. Secondly, has anybody talked to the mayor to see if he's interested in mandating a mask? I think this would help us overall. I've tried contacting him, and he's a very difficult man to get a hold of. I tried calling today, and there was not an answer.
It would have to be the county mayor.
County mayor?
He's already stated that he's not. It has to be the county.
Okay. I've had people contact me about that and that have talked. So I think that would help if we could get a mandate here within our county on the mask. And I know that is controversial, but I think it would help us to have a stronger structure here and a better backbone to mandate our children wearing masks and battling this case in our school system. Filtration systems, I know that's very expensive, but I know that that's something that a lot of school districts are looking at. And
Mr. Anderson?
Sorry, what kind of system?
filtration systems in classrooms.
Yes, we are actually getting, as I said, the UV lights, we're getting some of those. And I met with a company the other day to talk about putting in a filtration system at all the schools, and you're right, it's extremely expensive, but there are grants that, not grants, I can get 0.5% interest loans that'll pay for itself, so I'm pursuing that, but I haven't gotten any answers yet. But filtration system, we are thinking about putting them into the nurses' stations because that's we feel we need the most need. But as far as whole schools, it's really expensive.
Really expensive. Do we know anything about any additional funding? That would probably be you, Mr. Anderson, to assist with distance learning and in-school traditional learning. Are we getting any more funding, or?
We did have the CARES Act that we've applied for and received that. We do have FEMA grant funds that they reimburse at 75%. The most recent information I heard was that the federal government is looking to put together another package to send, and with a focus on schools, but we have no idea what that would be. So we're hopeful that that will come through, and we'll be able to see some additional. The problem with the remote education part right now, and now is we can't get the equipment. It's not available.
So what does FEMA reimburse for?
75% of things that were bought because of COVID. So for example, the sanitation wipes will get 75% of that back on those, because we wouldn't have probably bought that if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah, because I don't see how we can even afford to buy all of the things that we're being forced to buy, and I appreciate that you all have made that effort to purchase all of these things to keep. And it seems like in the emails that I have gotten, teachers are more concerned about going back than parents are for their children, which is probably obvious, but teachers are very concerned. I did have a special area teacher, music teacher, that contacted me about that she will be traveling to different classrooms and what will be her protection. And maybe you all covered it, I didn't pick up on it, but what will be her protection? Like, she's going to be going to all of the different classrooms.
Okay,
and that would be...
As long as that teacher stays 6 feet or more from the students, that teacher's going to be safe.
Okay. I'm sorry. Let me hurry and look and see if I've got anything else. What percentage of our students don't have access to a device or high-speed internet? Do we know that, or is that something we're going to find out when we find out? How many of our students do not have access to a device or high-speed internet? And that might be something we'll find out.
The city has contacted us, and they're helping to get internet access to more of our students. So April ran a report. Do you know off the top of your head how many students do not have? Okay, that's not good. 49% of our students do not have internet access at this time.
Ooh, that's high. Well, okay, I guess that's it. I just, I know that we don't know how our kids are going to do because we've had them sheltered since March, and I guess we'll just have to see how they do, but okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Want to start, David? You got another question?
Yes, sir. I want to talk about testing a little bit. Are we going to be doing any testing on site of the students or teachers? And if not, are we completely reliant on parents to tell us if they or their children have tested positive for COVID?
Oh, I thought you were talking about academic testing.
No, sorry. COVID testing. No swab.
The Rutherford County, do you want to answer that?
So like Ralph said, we had a meeting with, a phone conference with the Rutherford County Health Department this afternoon. Our guidelines for coming back after illness, like I mentioned earlier, are pretty strict. Testing is free in Rutherford County, in all of Tennessee. So we can require them to get a test. The health department has told us pretty much that we will have to rely on the parents to let us know.
I'm sorry.
They can only contact trace the people who are tested at the health department in Rutherford County. So if you are tested privately outside of the health department, Nashville or someone else does contact trace those people. As you know, there's quite a bit of cases of COVID, so you know, they're pretty overwhelmed with that. So we are going to have strict guidelines. They will have to, you know, go to the doctor and get tested, most likely, in most situations, if they have fever and they're sick.
So can we
We
test?
will be able to ask, you know, for that documentation. We asked the health department if we could test on site, at least employees. They did not have a lot of guidance. That was today at 2 o'clock, so I plan to look more into that. If I have to go to the state, I will.
Is that a local choice that our health department is making to not, I mean, how do we track these kids if our only way to find out about them being sick is through just parents? Yeah. I mean, I hate to say that, but there are parents, and I understand, they're desperate to work because they need money. I totally get it. But it would be very tempting to send a child back to school sick because they can't afford to.
What we will, so if we send a child home sick,
Yeah.
The nurses will be monitoring that when they can come back. They'll be in contact with attendants. They'll be in contact with the teacher. They will know when that child can come back. And as far as I know, we can ask for documentation from a doctor to say.
Can you require that?
I'll refer that to Elizabeth.
Yes. It's under the same section of the Tennessee Code that talks about TB and communicable diseases. This would qualify as that to be re-entered.
Thank you.
While we're talking about that, the New York Times had a really interesting article last week where they talked about a lot of some school systems that were doing statistical testing within the system, where they would take sample tests to determine, you know, how much asymptomatic spread is occurring, and in a way to get a metric of the spread without relying on parents. What I'm hearing is that's not an option for us. Is that correct?
I have seen briefly, most of my research has come from CDC and the state, and I've been heavy in those, but I have seen something about that. I don't have any guidance on that at this moment, but it is definitely something we can look into.
Okay, I want to take just a minute and recognize Mr. Sills, who has a question. David, you're on.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Speak up a little bit louder.
All right. I'll speak up a little bit louder. Hope you can hear me.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be with you guys in person, but I'm certainly following along on City TV. The whole issue of school reopening is very close to me, of course, right now, with having just lost my son to the coronavirus. My concern has to do with our opening at the time that we're planning to open. And I'm calling back to my mind that we closed schools back in March, and the cases weren't nearly what they are now. And we're talking about reopening in the midst of the height of this, which I understand we're dealing with a new normal. I'm convinced that this virus is not going anywhere for a long time. So we're going to have to learn how to live with it. And I want to commend Ralph and the team for putting together some really good plans that really look like they could work. I want to highlight the fact that we are giving parents an option. which I think is something that is so important. I also want to highlight that I feel that the wearing of a mask by students and teachers is one of the best ways to prevent this spread. I do know that wearing a mask is going to keep droplets from contacting you, or from mine from contacting you, or yours from contacting me. But the other thing that is a kind of a byproduct of wearing the mask is it prohibits you from touching your nose and your mouth so much, which is where we know a lot of that transmission is happening. So my concern is basically with the mask wearing. I'm highly in support of including that as an amendment to our dress code, or however that can be addressed. And I would also like to look at delaying the start of school a little bit. And I heard what Ralph said, and with the desire to align our year with the county. And I'm always in support of anything that's going to help with that. But we are dealing with some extenuating circumstances. And I'm not sure that parents would be necessarily opposed to it with those considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You are certainly in our thoughts and prayers, you and your entire family. Question on the giving COVID test. Are the tests for students and children the same as for adults? Do you know? I had that question posed to me. I don't know. That's not something we have to worry about particularly, but do you know?
Yeah, so they are the same. I know there are a couple different tests out there in Rutherford County. So the health department does the same test that everybody knows about. It's not fun, but I have known some people to take it, and it's not absolutely horrible, but it's not fun. There are places that do the rapid test. The Rutherford County Health Department said today they get maybe 200. They go quickly, then they have to wait to get some more. So those rapid tests are few and far between. So there are a couple different tests. I've heard pure speculation that one pediatric office is doing one that doesn't go all the way back like the normal one, but I don't have specifics.
Well, of course, that's not our, I don't mean to say, but that's not our problem. You know, we don't administer the test. That's up to someone else to do that, however they do it.
Right. So if we were to administer, like David was saying, then it would, we would absolutely get more information on that.
Sure, sure.
And we were told today, if someone got tested, they would fulfill their 14-day quarantine before the results of the test came back.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions? We're coming around. I'm sorry, David, you're not done yet? No, go ahead.
I think I'm trying to just ask a couple of questions
I want
and pass
to
it down
get
the line.
that end of the table so we can move on around.
All right. I have a question about the hybrid, a couple questions about the hybrid plan. Earlier, and it's not in the plan that's been proposed today, but earlier we were talking about sort of a step schedule, right. and it sounded to me like an effort to reduce the number of children in the classes. The hybrid plan, as you've outlined, where the younger students come to school and the older students go from home, what does that accomplish? Are we actually reducing class sizes if we were to do that?
We hope that there would be more classrooms available, and we could get EAs to work with a small group, and while the teacher's working with the large group, and then change up. So yes, there would be fewer students in a classroom.
When are parents going to have to make a decision on whether they do online or in person?
Depending on when the school year starts, we need to make a decision 1 week before the first day of school for students, so we can make the class roles for distance learning in the traditional classroom setting.
For the 9-week on and off, would it be possible, could a child go 9 weeks online, 9 weeks in class, 9 weeks online, 9 weeks in class? And would they stay with the same online teacher and the same in-person teacher if they switched around like that?
That wouldn't be guaranteed, but yes, they could alternate each one. But the teacher wouldn't be guaranteed because it depends on the class size of each teacher at that time.
What about the choice schools? Well, just in general, if a child chooses online, would they be partnered with a teacher from that same school? And I know that's particularly important to the Discovery families.
Yes, yes, that is our goal. Now, if there are 15 students at one school, let's say 12 students at one school, and there are 8 students at another school, then they would be teamed up, those 20 right there. Because our budget allows, we've got 404 classroom teachers scheduled at a 20-to-1 ratio. So we can't have a class of just 12 or 8. We need to have a class of 20.
Okay. For funding budgetary reasons. Another thing you had mentioned about having assignments available for pickup from school and assignments that need to be physically delivered to school. I assume for paperwork that it could either be scanned and emailed in, or parents could download the PDF and print at home. I'm trying to make sure that that's not the only option.
Yes, sir.
Going to pick it up.
That is an option, scanning and sending them to the school.
Now, I know a diorama you probably have to bring in, but written assignment, I would think everybody's got a cell phone now. They could take a picture and email it in and not have to make that trip. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ballard?
I just want to follow up with Ms. Moore. I was trying to understand, were you asking for an ultimate authority, or what authority were you asking for the comfort level to start back?
For something based in an actual metric based on the virus. So we've got dates that we want to meet, and I think we all would love for everyone to be back in school. I would. But just because we want it to be that way doesn't mean it's okay right now. And I would feel much more comfortable if we had some sort of metric, a guidance from the health department or something that said the level of the virus right now in the city of Murfreesboro or among your population, something like that. It's okay to give you the green light to start back with Plan 1 instead of Plan 2, the hybrid. So a lot of districts right now have a kind of a traffic light chart of green, yellow, red that corresponds to these 3 plans with clear ties to the level of infection in the community. And right now, where we are, Rutherford would be in the yellow. We're not in the green. And so that's my concern is I think that the plan has great metrics for when we close down, but that initial saying, let's start on Plan 1, I don't hear the data that support that right now.
I don't want to interrupt, but my problem with using the metrics that Mr. Ringstaff has proposed is that the CDC data, the testing data, we can look that up online, but the absentee data, that's a black box for parents. And the way you've written this, you take it into consideration, but we don't have metrics. And so I feel like parents are going to continue to feel like they're in the dark about what's going on in the schools and how close we are to shutting down a school or the system. I don't know if that's a question as much as a comment that I just don't know if that's the right metric to use in this case. And I haven't seen other schools use that. I see much more like Ms. Moore speaking about where it's the CDC data people are going by.
I didn't write this. This is from the Tennessee Department of Health.
Okay.
These are the guidelines that the Tennessee Department of Health have put out for school systems.
Okay.
And now the other districts who do this, they're county school districts, and they have numbers county-wide. If it's 0.5%, they do this. If it's between 0.5 and 1%, they do this. And if it's over 1%, they shut down. They go 100% remote distance learning. Do we want our numbers to include Rutherford County? That's the question that we need to answer. And if you do, then we'll go that route. I don't.
But we don't get numbers just for Murfreesboro. We only get numbers for Rutherford County. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's all I've seen.
The closest we get now are by zip codes starting today.
So it would be impossible almost to do it another way.
Correct.
Wes, go ahead.
Okay, well, I guess I was just trying to understand where would the authority be? And we've got CDC health, we got pediatrics. In other words, it's a battle of who's got the right statistics, the right data.
Well, I think it's more of just what is the metric, not what's the actual data, but just what's the metric we want to use to say it's okay to start right now.
Okay,
I hope that clears it up.
I'm getting my head around that.
Mr. Chairman, let me add, there's really no hard data that you can use. Let's say that we say, if we have to shut down 3 classrooms because of COVID, we shut down a school. Well, if one child tests positive, had 2 siblings, that's 3 classrooms. That's different than having 3 different children to test positive. Then that's more alarming than have 1 child and 2 siblings.
Ms. Martin?
Okay. David mentioned something that unfortunately is true. We have a new normal. And whether we like it or not, we have to learn to live with this new normal. And so I think that kids need to go back to school because I don't know when we're going to get to a point where it goes down. I mean, I'm being honest. Nobody does. Yes, I think if we get to school and we have too many people having to close down classrooms and that kind of thing, I see that at that point we might say, okay, it's not working, or we're making more people sick than not. You know, I get that. But I think in the beginning, and I totally understand what you're saying, I really do. And I wish that we had some kind of data that would say, it's okay, you're making an okay decision to let children go back to school. I don't think we're going to get that, and I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon. And we're talking about kids that have already been out of school since the middle of March. I know they were always out in the summer, but let me just tell you, the fact that they've been out an additional 2.5 months on top of the months during the summer is massive, massive as far as teaching and learning goes. Like Ralph mentioned, I mean, they're going to go back to square one with a lot of these kids because they've been out of school for that long and very potentially have not done anything school-like the entire time they've been off. Yes, I know that there are families that are doing a great job, but even families that are not in areas that are undesirable, both parents are trying to either work from home, they've got kids at home that they're trying to help. I mean, it's just not, kids are getting the raw end of that deal. I mean, and that's what I worry about. And I thought Wes might mention it because you had mentioned something earlier about talking to a local doctor, very well respected. Why don't you mention that little thing? Okay. I don't know if he wants you to quote him or not, but
yeah, well,
good information.
It goes along with some notes I'd taken as well with other doctors. But former board member, Dr. Anthony Brown, and I had a conversation regarding the risk that he could see for starting back. And he didn't have to think long before he said we needed to go back. We needed to be back in school, and that the risk to the children was not nearly as high as what we're dealing with the numbers for adults. So, for instance, 2% of all cases of all of this have been children. Those have survived. Those have not been deaths, but only 2% have become infected. The children don't get as sick as adults, and I know I'm going to get some pushback on this because this is my data. So they don't get as sick as adults. So the serious complications that are very, very rare in the children. These experts don't expect an increase with school starting back because children do not transfer it to the adults. This is an adult to adult, or in some rare cases, there's an exception of everything, but for the most part, the fight we're fighting is for the adult to adult issue. We're not fighting the children taking it home to the adult. So those are just some comments to remember as far as scientific community thinking what might be when we start back to school.
I think those facts are debatable.
Well, of course,
We're not here to debate the health facts. Let's go ahead with our question pertaining to opening schools in August. That's what we need to worry about tonight.
Okay.
thank you.
If I can continue then. Why, thank you. Another thing that somebody you might consider is being on a regular schedule again may keep more people from being out and in stores and in places like that. If children are back on a school schedule and parents, thank God, get to go back to work to earn the money for their children to live and eat and everything else, it may go down some from that, just because, I mean, you'll have to admit, when kids aren't in school and parents aren't working regularly, they don't stay home, unfortunately. I know they're supposed to, but they're not. They're going all over town. I see them all over town. I know y'all are too. Another thing, you talked about teachers concerned about missing days. So I really like the idea of obviously helping them with that, because one teacher could become sick themselves, then they could be exposed and have to quarantine. Then you think about one teacher could have to miss 50 days this year as opposed to 10 in all kinds of different situations. And I understand that that would be money from us to try to make that happen, but I'm totally willing to make that happen, because that's a real concern for teachers, is that they're going to use all their sick days, all their personal days, and it'll still not be enough, and then they'll start to lose pay because they have unpaid sick leave. So I really like that. We talked about option 1 or 2 with the long distance learning and still in-school learning. What happens if those student and teacher numbers don't match up? What if more teachers want to do distance learning and not enough in a school want to do in-school learning? How do we, are we going to, we can't tell Ms. Smith that she can't distance teach and tell Ms. Jones that she can, So I guess, well, that's another thing. One more thing, and I'll let you talk, Ralph. I see you. EAs. We're talking about EAs doing a whole lot. And I just know that at Pittard, when I left, we had already had significantly less EAs than I had ever had as a principal in a school. And so I go back to, again, if EAs are helping take temps in the morning, they're doing small groups, they're doing lunch duty.
Monitoring the isolation.
They're
room.
monitoring the isolation. I'm just telling you, we don't have that many. And that's, again, I go back to personnel and worrying about how do you maintain the system when you logically don't have the people? And is that going to be a reason at some point where we have to give in and say, you know what, we just don't have enough adults in the building to be able to continue, reasonably. So that's it for right now.
Okay, can I answer?
Yeah.
It is possible for us to have more teachers desire to distance teach than we need. And that's where we have to make the decisions. We're going to have to, first of all, I'd like to take care of the ones who have the underlying condition, ones who meet those criteria.
Right.
And then, but I may have to tell some, I'm sorry, we need you in the classroom.
Okay.
All right. And also with EAs, previously, in the years past, we've provided subs for special ed EAs. I would like to bring to you in August that we provide subs for regular ed EAs.
If we can get subs.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not, I'm not trying to be difficult. I want kids to go back. I'm just worried about logistically the personnel and being able to maintain that level. Does it make sense?
Yes, and we usually start interviewing for subs after the school year starts, but we're not. We're going ahead and doing that because normally we have certified teachers who didn't get jobs to want to sub. So, but we're going ahead and recruiting, starting now, and interviewing and getting ahead of the game.
And I also want to say real quick, I do so admire the work y'all done on this. It is very detailed. It's more detailed than I've seen in a lot of other county or districts' plans. And I don't want you to think in any way that I'm criticizing or saying to you all, oh my gosh, I can't, not at all. I mean, you've thought of a lot of things I didn't think of, and I think it's great. I'm just worried about the logistics.
I appreciate your questions. These are good
Okay.
questions.
Ms. Moore?
I have a few questions about the distance learning option. So effective teaching in the classroom is not the same skill set as effectively teaching online. You can't just take your lesson for in class and just suddenly pop it into online and it be engaging or useful. So I have questions about, I know you said there'd be some professional development for the teachers who are going to be doing the distance learning, but really it's possible that any teacher in the district could find herself doing or himself doing distance learning if their class is put on quarantine. So that's something I have a question about that, how the support that'll be there for teachers to learn effectively to use those tools.
Sherry.
So one thing, as soon as we identify the distance learning teachers, we will start that PD right away. That will be conducted with academic coaches as well as the teachers themselves by central office staff, the instruction department, and with Mr. Brooks and Mr. Cheeves. We hope that we can build capacity with that so that they have that real-time support in the building and then with us throughout the district, because let me tell you, we are ready to get back in those schools. The instruction department is ready to get out and support teachers. So we will provide that as quick as possible once they're identified. We have a plan ready for that.
That's great. Is there any chance there might be a coach that would be devoted just to online learning, just for any teacher who finds themselves having to do online, that would be there as an instructional coach of some sort?
I really think that will fall under Trent Cheeves and Mickey Brooks. I think they'll be kind of like the coach for that. Is that answering your question, or are you talking about an
academic? More of the kind of mechanics of the stuff. I'm talking about more of the effective teaching style for an online environment.
We're going to partner with, so that will come from the instruction department. We will do that. Okay. And one thing about Mr. Brooks and Mr. Cheeves, they were teachers, former teachers, and they phenomenal.
So they get that unity between that. Okay. Just one or two more questions about the distance option. Did I understand correctly that students will not be able, or parents will not be able to choose the distance learning option if they can't provide their own device initially?
Correct, unless the student has an underlying condition. If that student has an underlying condition, we will provide the device.
Okay. I realize our hands are tied because we don't have the equipment that we need, but it just feels so inequitable to hear that
Yes, ma'am.
kids who don't have it don't have the option not to go back into a school.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Can we legally do that? I'm just asking, sorry.
Legally, we're required to provide a free, appropriate public education. The means by which that's done, of course, with COVID-19 offers some flexibility. So as long as we're offering them a free, appropriate public education in the building, then we've satisfied our constitutional requirement.
Okay.
And that goes into students that might not be able to come into the building or have an IEP, serious underlying conditions in the building might not be appropriate for them, so we would have to provide access to them remotely.
And just one more question along those lines. So I think I heard you say that if we did the hybrid plan, which puts grades 3 through 6 in an online distance learning format, did you say that even right now we don't have the devices or bandwidth to accommodate the hybrid plan?
That's questionable.
Okay. Okay, that's just troubling, because if we found ourselves in a position where we needed to go try to do the hybrid, or hopefully not, but having to go fully distance, it's just.
And if we go hybrid, ESP will still be open. And in all honesty, we'll still be educating most of the students in our buildings.
I think that's great. I was relieved to hear that. So you'd basically be just putting them in a classroom, but in the ESP.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right, Mr. Settles has another question. Lisa? David, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm a little concerned with something that I heard that was just brought up, and that is if students or parents choose to use distance learning, we won't be providing them any equipment. It's going to be all on them. And that kind of concerns me because there's several students who won't be able to afford it. They just don't have it. So we're creating a dynamic whereby if you have enough funds or you have enough substance, you can avoid the danger or perceived danger. But if you don't, you'll have to come to school because we are actually providing that in the classroom. And that's troubling to me. I'm not saying I have a solution. I'm just saying that that's a troubling aspect of what we're putting forth. Because some students simply don't have it to do. And they will be required to come into the classroom and assume that risk, whereas some students that can afford it, quite naturally, can avoid the risk because they have those supports in place. So those same students that we've been talking about that are put in situations in their home life that are less than desirable, far less than desirable, are now going to be put into another situation where their economic situation puts them at a greater risk than their counterparts. And that's very, very concerning to me. That's all.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Goff?
I don't think I have any more questions other than I was thinking about what guidance that you've received from our governor. I know he's really impressing upon local governments to make their own decisions about school, but what about our Commissioner of Education? What type of guidance are we getting?
We have commissioners call 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 o'clock, and the state has put out toolkits for each and every area of the school system, and we've used those toolkits to develop our plan and to assist us in our plan. And they give us guidance, they give us input 3 days a week, and then we also have a Mid-Cumberland Superintendent conference call on Fridays at 10 o'clock. So we get together and say, oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And we collaborate and do best practices.
So is she like encouraging counties, school districts that have high number of COVID cases to reopen?
She's not saying those words, no ma'am. No,
Okay.
She's not going to throw herself out there like that. But she is encouraging us to do what we can to educate our students. And they repeat the mandate, 6.5 hours of instruction for 180 days.
Okay.
All right, we have a proposal on the floor from Mr. Ring's staff that has given. I will ask at this point in time, I think we've had a good hour of discussion. Are we ready to make a motion to approve his recommendation?
I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not sure we are. I want to, Butch, but is there any possibility of us doing any kind of a phase-in so that, and I only say that, not a real long one, but if you dealt with maybe half of the students in the school coming back, doing the temperatures, kind of getting used to that routine, and then dealt with the other half, and then maybe brought them all together. And I'm not talking about a lengthy one, but just I think it might be a little easier for them to adapt if they were in smaller groups to begin with. Just a thought.
Something that the county is thinking about doing, if you've watched their meeting, their last meeting, they're thinking about going to half days for the first week.
I heard that.
And that could be a good adjustment, but that hasn't been approved yet. I think they're meeting again on the 21st, week from tonight. Now, if you approve the plan as of tonight, and if you say, Mr. Ringstaff, please mirror the county's plan, if they go to that, then we will as well.
I mean, I think that only makes sense. If we're going to mirror their schedule and they do a phase-in, at least parents would know that both sets of kids are all going to be doing the same thing as far as childcare is concerned.
Exactly.
So is that a motion?
I'm uncomfortable.
Wait just a second, please, sir. Let me get my question answered over here. Is that a motion, Ms. Barton?
I guess my motion would be that if we do option one, so it's not really a motion, that we consider doing some kind of a phase-in at the beginning of that, along with the county, if they so desire, if they choose to do that.
All right, if they choose to do a 3-day phase-in instead of a 5-day, is that, we're going to go along with, is that what you're saying?
I'm just thinking, if we're going to get their calendar, then we need to do their calendar. I mean, we need to, if they do, what I heard they were thinking about doing was a 5-day and do 2 days with one half, 2 days with the other half, and then Friday, bring everybody together. But I don't know that they haven't settled on that. That was just what one of the board members told me, so.
Okay.
I could make a motion to approve the option one and grant the director or Ralph the revisions, to make the revisions such as the half-days as we go into this thing, and to give him the authority to make those changes.
Okay.
I would second that motion, also adding that I would like to see Ralph, and he and I talked about this, there are going to be so many what-if situations, we can't even count them all. A lot for principals, trying to decide who goes home, who doesn't. So if you all could meet and try to hash out, I don't know, a few thousand of them before school starts. I mean, just so that principals go to school, start school with some feeling of, gosh, I don't even know what the word is, but that they might know what they're doing.
We will provide them a resource guide.
Okay.
All right, so you're seconding then Mr. Ballard's motion?
I think I am.
Okay, now, is there any other discussion on the motion or any other part of it?
What's the motion exactly? That we approve one, but we link any changes to what the county is doing?
In the
We
calendar.
link any changes based on our director's decision to do so.
Pertaining to the calendar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we basically grant the director the authority to change the calendar based on administrative decisions. We give him that authority, but we're not requiring him to do exactly what the county does.
No.
I'm just trying to make sure I know what I'm voting on.
I don't know, Mr. Ballard, I'll let you go in a little more detail on your motion.
The motion is to approve the option one as it's been presented tonight, with giving the superintendent the authority to make the change necessary for the county calendar or any other necessary in progress steps that need to be changed.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I don't mean, and David, we're not saying that we're going to do everything the county does. I was just talking about the phase-in. They're a totally different system and have totally different needs than we do, so.
Well, I mean, it looks to me under Plan 1, there's a lot of discretion already. I mean, our board's not going to make the decision to close a classroom or a school or the system. That's all going to be coming from the administration. It does sound like we would, since we're talking about changing the calendar, and the calendar is something that we as a board have already approved, I agree that we either need to vote on changing the calendar or vote on giving Mr. Ringstaff the authority to set the calendar. And I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with Mr. Ringstaff making minute changes to the plan, as needed, and I trust him to make those decisions. I do not want to require him to follow decisions of another school system
I don't either.
than ours.
I
Perhaps
agree.
we should separate out the motions, one for Plan 1 and then a separate one to amend our calendar, because that is something that we voted on before, to give the director discretion to match the county. It's a little cleaner that way, possibly.
That would be up to the person that made the motion and made the second. So if the person that made the motion, Mr. Ballard, if you want to change it as such, then I think you can at this point, as long as the second agrees to your change. And then we'll vote on that motion. Then if we need to come back and have another motion pertaining to the calendar, we can do that.
Okay, I make a motion to approve option 1.
All right. Motion has been made by Mr. Ballard to approve option 1 instead of your previous motion.
Instead of the previous motion.
Okay. All right, now, do I have a second to that motion?
I will still second that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Barton made the second. Now, Mr. Ringstaff,
What you're getting ready to vote on is option 1. Let's go to option 1.
Correct.
What concerns me is the way Mr. Ballard had it originally worded to approve the framework of our plan. Because there may be a time where we need to go from option 1 to option 2, and I can't wait for a school board meeting to do that.
well, I think what we're doing now, we're just approving option 1. Then we'll come back with another motion on any other changes
Okay.
that will need to be made. Am I correct, Ms. Taylor?
It's up to how the board wants.
Okay.
I mean, I think it was presented by Mr. Ringstaff as a cohesive
yeah.
reentry plan with option 1 is
Right,
traditional and
okay.
choice, option
All right.
2 is hybrid. So this is a cohesive plan that was presented to you.
Okay,
that
the
he was
motion
asked-
has been made and duly seconded. Will you call the roll, please, ma'am?
I'm sorry, point
Whoops, I'm
of
sorry.
order, question, I don't know what the,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
just to clarify. I mean, I may be able to vote for this overall framework, but not necessarily starting with Plan 1. So are these, I would like clarity on what I'm voting for.
I would too.
I'm happy to vote for the whole framework. I think
I am
it's
too.
very great. A little bit of hesitation about
Well,
the particular
I totally
starting.
agree with that. I didn't think about it when I seconded it, so I totally agree with that. Sorry, Butch.
I think it just,
I think the motion that Mr. Ballard has made is basically to open schools using Plan 1, correct?
Yes.
And that was seconded by Ms. Barton. That's what you're voting on now. Any other changes that we'll make in that plan, calendar-wise or anything else, will have to be done through another motion.
I don't think that's what Mr. Ringstaff has proposed.
Well, let's ask Mr. Ringstaff.
If you would approve the motion that you have in front of you, that would be just super. That would cover, that would cover everything.
Would you please, I'll read.
thank you.
Okay. The motion is, Mr. Ringstaff respectfully requests that the following motion be approved by the school board. That the board approve the Murfreesboro City Schools reopening framework for families and students for the 2020 and 21 school year and grant the director approval for revisions as required, and to the extent any of our policies are in conflict of the framework, then the framework controls through the end of 2021 school year.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'll rescind my second. I'll take it back.
Do I need to reread that, or can we say,
Well, does that not cover what
Not
Wes-
exactly. I mean, it does,
Wes-
but it doesn't, does it?
suggested? Does that not cover, I mean, the revisions as required? We're giving him freedom to make revisions, and
I think it does everything that we've talked about doing.
I think so.
It gives him the opportunity to make any revisions as required, which would mean changing the calendar or anything that goes along with it, the way I read it anyway. That was Mr. Ringstaff's request.
Yes, sir.
Does that coincide with your motion?
yes?
Okay. Does that coincide with your second?
I will second it if that's the motion we're making.
Well, that's what you.
That's the
I'm
motion
just
we're
making sure. Things have gone all over the place here, so I'm just making sure.
Now, any other discussion on the motion?
Can we have a roll call vote?
We will have, if you'll just give us time to get to it. Any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, Ms. Van Cleve.
Wesley Ballard,
Aye.
Roseanne Barton,
Aye.
Becky Goff,
Aye.
David LaRoche,
Aye.
Amanda Moore,
Aye.
David Settles,
Aye.
and Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes.
All right, the motion passes. Now, is there anything else that we need to discuss pertaining to the opening of school?
I just want parents to
Not
know.
ever hold your peace.
I do. I want parents to know that they have a choice. This is not a mandate. You have a choice to educate your child at home or send your child to school. That's all.
Thank you.
Well, I also want to say, just like we talked about, I want teachers and principals to have big roles in determining the what-ifs, as many of those as we can before school starts. And I know that's a lot to ask, but I think it would make everybody feel a little bit better if they had that. And I know you said they'd have a resource, but teachers are very anxious, as well they should be, principals are. So I want to do what we can for them as much as I want to do what we do for kids.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other business to come before this board tonight?
Did we have something else on the agenda?
We did, but Mr. Ringstaff took that off
Okay, got it.
Yes.
earlier on. Okay.
Not the approval of the minutes. Do we have to do that? Yeah.
Oh,
The consent items.
I got to find my agenda here somewhere. Oh, that's right. We didn't do the consent agenda, did we?
No.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda
So moved.
item? Thank you, Mr. LaRoche. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Thank you. I think we've had some very good discussion. We've had some very good questions. And I'm glad that we have come up with a solution. And I want parents and everybody that's watching, that's involved, that know that this was not an easy decision, I don't think, for any of the 7 of us.
No, not at all.
Including Mr. Settles, who is with us by voice. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.